evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eric Davis with the EvoSec Podcast. I am very blessed this evening to have an awesome guest. Honestly, I told him off air that I've been waiting to get in touch with him for several years, and a really, really good friend of ours named Rich Brown of AWS, American Warrior Society, happened to text me and this gentleman here and hooked us up. And I'll just say I responded and said, "Hey, I've been wanting to get a hold of him for a long time." And it is just apropos. But anyway, welcome Justin Danger Carroll to the EvoSec Podcast. Welcome, brother. This is a long time coming. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate you having me on. And Rich sent that text, and I was camping and had like bare minimum service. I don't know how that one got through, but I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna seem like a jerk because I'm not gonna respond for however long.
Well, I was surprised you responded, but remember what my response was. What, Justin, you're out on an adventure?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Justin, for the audience, I know I've likely mentioned you before on the show, but if it wasn't for Rich Brown and Mike Seeklander, frankly, we wouldn't have this show. I honestly probably wouldn't have done half the things that I've done in my life in most recent years. They're just such excellent people. And, incidentally enough, my brother had volunteered me for that little segment that they were going to do some years ago, the everyday, or maybe everyday Joe trainer, because I have always done some sort of training on the side, nothing big, but my brother had nominated me for that. And so I did a little interview with Rich. I don't think it ever aired, but in that, Rich asked me, he's like, well, what do you planning on doing? Are you hanging out a shingle, so on and so forth? And frankly, that kind of started my thought process. Well, maybe we should do a little bit of something. And I had wanted to do a podcast at some point, and I figured it would be a great time. And so that's really, honestly, in a big way, how this started. But Justin, for our audience members out there, if you don't mind, good sir, can you give our members out there a bit about your bio, where you're from, how you got to where you are right now? And I have obviously some other comments on that, but if you could please give us a quick bio.
Sure. So I'm going to steal my favorite Mike Seeklander line ever, the favorite thing he's ever said. And if I give you my whole bio, it just sounds like I can't hold down a job. So I'm from the mountains of Southern Appalachia, a little small town that no one's ever heard of. So I hung around for about a year after high school and didn't really have a whole lot going on. I lived in a trailer that was rusting down around me and worked second shift, and all my friends were off at college. And so basically I had no friends, no life, no real career prospects. So I joined the Marine Corps. I did 8 years on active duty in the Marines, which led me to getting out. And like everybody, right around the 2010, was like, oh, I'm going to go contract. And like a few of us actually did it. I was an overseas contractor for a couple different agencies. That just led me into being in the right place at the right time for a full-time job at the Marine Special Operations Schoolhouse. So I did that for 5 years as a full-time instructor there, which really kind of lit my passion for teaching and instructing. I really found my, I don't know if you want to call it a calling, but something I really enjoy doing. I did that for 5 years. I left. For a couple of years, I kind of just bounced around doing episodic contract work, wrote a couple of books on digital privacy and security. And then that led to me getting hired by a startup up in Northern Virginia. So I've personally taught just about all the soft assets, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Berets, MARSOC guys, and many of the intelligence community people, DEA, U.S. Marshal Service, U.S. Secret Service, and so forth. Left there in 2019. I was still a contractor and just needed to get out of the Beltway area. it's not my thing. Like some people thrive in that environment. It's not for me. So moved moved to the country, moved up in the mountains, and COVID happened. So I was still contracting for that company. I only had to fly out, a few times a year to teach a little bit here and there. And that was going great until COVID happened and shut down all the government in-person training, and travel was really restricted and all that. So I decided, like, I don't know why I thought this would be a good time to go to paramedic school, but jumped into paramedic school. I've been a paramedic for I've worked in EMS for about 6 years now. I just cut back to part-time about a year ago because 2 years ago I went to a night class at the police academy and became a full-time deputy. So I'm now a full-time deputy sheriff, a part-time paramedic, a volunteer search and rescue tech, and I teach EMS and law enforcement at their respective academies. So that's kind of my long, twisted backstory.
Well, what I would say, you spoke about, you feel like your bio just means you can't hold down a job, but you know what, Justin, the dudes and the women that I know that are some of the most capable, have the most experience to espouse to those of us that want to learn, are people that had a lot of jobs, and
Yeah.
one of the things, and forgive me if I misquote you, but I believe you've said that, you like to be a jack of all trades and a master of many, is it, or many of some, I forget exactly how you phrased it. I'll let you correct me how I said that. However, I think the point behind that is I think when people say a jack of all trades, master of none, I think there's, number one, either they're selling themselves short or they're giving themselves an out to say, hey, I just do a little bit of everything. But I mean, we really, in this type of path or this walk, we do have to be, spread out and have a knowledge in a lot of areas, but we also got to be probably a subject matter expert in quite a handful of them. Can you expound on that quote of yours? And did I get it kind of right?
Yeah, it's pretty much spot on. I really hesitate to say I'm a master of anything, because like firearms, right? Like I train a lot. I practice a lot. I dry practice every day, and I'm probably better than I'm probably in that top, I don't know, 5%, whatever it is. But like inside that top percent, whatever it is, man, there are some people that are way better than me. So like, you're always like, you're never going to be the number one guy, and if you are, man, it's going to last for about a second, and then you're, But that's never been me. I've never been like the top competitor, the top whatever. So I really hesitate to call myself a master, but I want to be good, really, really good at a few things. But I want to have a background in a lot of things. And, it kind of led me into paramedicine. I was actually planning on going to the police academy. And like when I jumped into that, but I realized, like, man, this is really an opportunity to grow and learn about something that I don't know at all. And I think I've said this on Rich's podcast maybe, but like I joined the military because if you want to be, a gunfighter, you go where the gunfights are, right? Like if you want to be good at emergency medicine, like you go where that is. You go, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money where the money is. Like I'm like, man, this is an experience that I want.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir, please.
I've just kind of been willing to, take maybe not the most lucrative path or the most stable path necessarily, but I mean, nobody depends on me. I don't have any mouths to feed or anything like that. So I have incredible luxury to be able to do that. But, and it is a lot. I do fully understand it's a luxury that not everyone has, but it is cool to be able to just, go where my interests take me.
Well, and Justin, really, I think I did misquote you because you hit it on the head. You actually didn't say master of several. You said I think you said I am good at many or good at some things. And I think I misquoted you a little bit because you're a humble dude. I think it's also a trait of humble people that are good at a lot of things, but also are grounded. And I definitely appreciate that about you. But that really segues us into one of the things we were going to talk about, because we've got a lot of things. I think I mentioned, I was like, I did up an outline, but I'm like, you know what? I don't know if we're going to get through all those. So we'll try to hit on as much as we can, but maybe have you back on for another show. But Justin has written a superb book. It's called Competent and Dangerous: Master the Skills to Be a Man Among Men. And I'm just going to hold it up here. You can
Holy
kind of
crap! Look
see.
at all those notes, man.
Yeah, that's me. And when I'm into books, and also, frankly, sometimes it helps me with the podcast if I'm gonna jump into a book. But I do write a lot of notes, and I like to have my post-its and my little tabs. So a lot of my books are going to have those things, and they get dog-eared pretty quick too. But what I will say about this, and again, I don't want to misquote you, but hopefully I get this right. But basically, you said that you wrote this book, and it's a book that you had wished you had as a 16-year-old young man. Correct? Am I
Yeah,
correct in
100%.
that? And I would agree. I look back at all the things that I've been exposed to, even in my 40s, that I wish that I would have even had a scintilla of understanding, or at least a path to go on when I was in my 20s, and even my 30s. Number one, I'd probably be a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now,
Yeah.
and many other things that I'm, trying to still meet those goals. But I'd probably be a bit better shooter and probably be better at a few other things. But I think in this day and age, with the propagation and the prevalence of all this information out there, it's still important for, the written word is so crucial. I heard Mark Levin say one time, not to get on the political side, but he's obviously a conservative political commentator, but also he is an author and has wrote a lot of influential books to me on the conservative side. But he said something one time, and it also made me think of some projects that I've been on the last couple of years as well, that I need to really focus on completing. But that a podcast comes and goes, and yes, it can help people. It can point people in the right direction. It can be entertaining and educational. But really, the written word is really what lasts. Again, it'll last for, obviously we have books that are centuries old and how impactful they are. So again, if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me,
Heck yeah.
I'm just gonna read to our audience the table of contents, so folks know what they're getting. And I cannot recommend highly enough that folks get out and pick this book up, especially if you are a young man or young woman that are serious about both self-protection, um, frankly, preparedness, if we want to call it that. I like to think that there are other words for that. But if you are serious about being able to take care of your family, be financially stable, all of those good things, you need to pick this book up. Anyway, so chapter 1 is prepare your body and mind. Of course, we got some stuff about fitness and diet and mental toughness in that section we're going to talk a little bit about. Number 2 is develop a system of everyday carry, EDC. Number 3, build financial stability. 4, mobility. So you can think of PMCS and or keeping maintenance up on your vehicles and other things of that connection. First aid in chapter 5, digital security. And I'll stop there just a second, Justin. So I do have a background in, I was in the Army, and I was a signal nerd. Frankly, don't mind. I want to make sure that folks understand that I wasn't into anything sexy, but also involved in technology. But you know what? I get a lot out of your digital security stuff, brother. A lot of excellent reminders and really, really important information in there. Number 7, dress well and look sharp. Number 8, basic all hazards preparedness. Number 9, physical security. We're going to hit on some of that. 10, wilderness survival. 11, people ops, considering, how you interface with people, giving a good handshake, telling jokes, how to be a good guest and how to be good to your guest. 12 is firearms, and that really sums it up. But I would bet that there's so much information. And Justin, did you get to the point where it's like, I want another subject in here, but I've got to stop it here?
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 more for sure that I don't know if I'll do a second book or not, but Rich had a couple suggestions, and I'm like, man, why didn't I think of that? And there are just a couple others that I'm like, man, I like, but where do you start, and where do you end? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, it's a plethora of information. And again, I'm gonna have Justin's book in the show notes, and do yourself a favor, and not just do yourself a favor, but support gentlemen like Justin and go out there and purchase his book. You will definitely benefit from it. So, Justin, with that said, before we go into some of these subjects, what is it to be competent and dangerous?
So this came from a Jordan Peterson quote that Rich introduced me to years ago. And I think competence is a thing that's just generally kind of being lost and devalued, right? Like everybody's careers become more and more specialized. And I think that's a thing that I've really kind of shied away from, is getting into a super specialized career that requires, a 4-year degree, a graduate degree, whatever. That you just get deeper and deeper into this hole of knowing more and more about less and less, and just losing general competence. And competence is kind of falling by the wayside anyway. Like, there's probably fewer and fewer people who can, who do their own vehicle maintenance, and who do, can do their own repairs around their house, and know a little bit about plumbing and a little bit about electrical and that sort of stuff, which I know a little bit about, but certainly didn't feel confident to write about some of those things in the book. But just being able to handle yourself in whatever situation, being able to, some of these are kind of hard skills, like building a fire, or things like that in the wilderness. And some of them are soft skills, like how to tell a joke, shake a hand, be a guest at a dinner party, be a good wedding guest. Those are, man, that chapter was probably the stuff I needed to hear the most. That and the, how to dress well is probably the stuff I needed most in my 20s, when I just wanted to dress like, a slob all the time, shorts and a t-shirt all the time. And I was like, why do I need to, go to this stupid thing that I don't want to go to, or whatever. And like realizing now, it probably would have been a lot of fun. It would have been a good place to meet, people and network and whatever. Just being competent across a range of domains, a range of skills, and not just being super siloed into one single thing. And then I talk about being dangerous a little bit. This is also out of that Jordan Peterson quote. I think it's a good man is not a harmless man. A good man is capable of violence, but has it under control. I'm sure I'm butchering that quote, but if you're not dangerous, if you're harmless, how do you enforce any of your values? You can say you're against anything, but if you don't have the ability to back that up, or to prevent someone from imposing their will upon you, like your values are toothless and essentially meaningless if you don't have the ability to enforce them. So I think that's kind of what I meant about being dangerous, about being, someone to be taken seriously, to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I really like that. And you said it very eloquently, and pretty much the way I recall hearing that. And did he not kind of say that? And again, I may be misremembering this, but that a weak man is not a good man.
Yeah.
Essentially. And I'd like to really drive home the fact that this is another thing that is lost on our society, is that, we really need dangerous people. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. We got a lot of badass, capable women too. And there should be. I just think it's real important, and how that I'll just put it, how laudable it is for a man or a woman, a man that I I very much admire that dude is a dangerous person, but he's a humble, a good man. He's kind to people. That to me is, and then has all of these skills that you articulate in this book. That is a very, very valuable person, you know, A- and I think that with this whole mentality of this toxic masculinity garbage that is completely off point, and again, I don't mind getting political on here from time to time. It is kind of funny. It's the only complaints we ever get. It's when we get political. But the truth is that a dangerous man that is kind, capable, and can help people, that's who we should all strive for. And by the way, that is a national security benefit as well. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100% agree. Like in my paramedic job, it's not a profession that most people think of as you need to be dangerous or you need to have the capability for violence, but it's I mean, you can carry no tools basically to defend yourself. So it's your hands and your wits and your attitude. And you meet a lot of really dangerous people. There are people who are the scariest thing to me is someone who's really drunk. They can just turn on a dime so quickly. They're very unpredictable. They can be incredibly violent. Um, People don't typically think of that as a place where you need someone who is comfortable with interpersonal violence. But sometimes you do. Usually you don't. And when you don't, you need that person to be, same thing with being a law enforcement officer. People, see the gun, and sometimes that's all they can think about, the gun and the handcuffs. But to most people, they're like, wow, thanks for being so nice. Thanks for being being willing to work with me on this. And it is a spectrum that you have to be a little bit comfortable in all of those. And, if all you've got's your authority, all you got's your badge, or all you've got's your position as the boss or whatever, you're not going to get nearly as far as if you have a little bit of people skill and you can actually influence people to get them to take a behavior that they think they want to take now. If you can talk them into handcuffs, that's way better than beating them into handcuffs for everybody involved. So yeah, I totally agree. Like you need that capability to switch it, one way or the other. But yeah, man, you also should be just a decent human being.
Yeah, I cannot agree with that more.
I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like I just rambled a bunch, but
not at all, brother. No, that was a great response. And it's just one of those areas that I think a lot more about as I get older. I'm not too old. I'll be 53 this September, and you start reflecting on the most important attributes that frankly I should be passing on. This is kind of a cool part to add to the discussion is our son. He literally, and this is, my brother gives me a hard time when he's on with me about my use of acronyms. So I try to think about that. You and I being
hey, bring it, man.
service.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. So he just within days EAS'd from the Marine Corps. So I mean,
man, is awesome.
He literally is down the hall. And the cool part about when I get to talk about this is because our son is our only child, and he joined the Marine Corps. He was on delayed entry program at 17. He was out the door at 18. I think if memory serves me, you left at 19, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, but just to have, and I feel a little bit emotional about it because, he joined at 18, and one of my jiu-jitsu partners, one of my most important shooting training partners, and just my buddy left to go to the Marine, and I took it hard. Of course, we all adjust to that. Parents all adjust to that. But it is just a wonderful situation to be in where they're going to stay with us here in our house, until they, get their feet on the ground. And he's got several job opportunities in his field that he was in the Marine Corps, and which he isn't going to mind if I talk about it. He was in radar, so he's got a technical
Oh yeah.
background, and they also brought, of course, his wife's with him and our grandson here. So we currently have a full house, and my jiu-jitsu partner and shooting training partners back in the house at least for a little while. So I'm uber pumped about that. And
Heck yeah.
where I was going with that is, I would like to think that, and I know I have passed a lot of this stuff to my son, but getting to pass a lot of this stuff on to my grandson, it is also, again, what I have been reflecting on a lot, and us being dangerous, capable, kind. And I think about those things when it comes to both still my son and my grandson. So I kind of thought it was a good opportunity to draw the conclusion that this is where these books, and this book like yours, come to be very important, because we have a lot of young men. My grandson's 5, and I'm definitely going to have him in this book when he's old enough to understand. And sometimes I read to him right now. It's like, okay, Grandpa, I'm ready to play, but I'm trying to instill in it. Anyway, I really had you on. I apologize for going down a tangent, but I felt it was important to bring a kind of life connection for me
Yeah.
in how important these attributes are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I'm super flattered by how one that somebody has actually read the book. That's incredible. But like I'm super flattered by your thoughts on the book. And I don't know, kind of writing a book now it's part just vanity project. Like I wanted, I'm not 50 yet, but I'm pretty close. And you start thinking about, what do I want to leave behind in this world? What do I, what mark do I want to make? And that was kind of part of it. Also, this was just kind of part of I don't know, like I've always kind of had an idea for, I said this was the book I wanted when I was 16 and the book I wanted to write when I was 26, but like didn't know any of the stuff. So it would have been a pretty short book. But yeah, I really appreciate your feedback on the book. And like, it sounds like you are pretty much exactly the person that this book was intended to land with.
Well, I am learning so much of it, and to be frank, there's a lot of really good stuff in it. I was like, okay, I got to implement this better, or I got to implement this completely. So absolutely, I am definitely an audience member, and someone that this book reached very well. With that said, because I'm probably the one getting long in the tooth, I should say. We talk about this on our show quite often. And I also don't like to beat up on, our gear and our firearms individuals. I love gear. I love my firearms. I like sexy gun porn. I like that stuff. However, we espouse this on our show, and I think it's so important. And the first thing you talk about isn't tools, man. And I would say it's not, it's not even just mindset yet. It's physical fitness, right? And if you
Man,
don't mind,
yeah.
I'm going to read, and I'll let you expound on this. There's a couple of cool statements in here, because another thing that I talk about on our show, and my brother and I talk about on here, is the simple neural pathway that starts from just hearing something, and a connection that it may not be that you totally own it, but sometimes phrases stick with you, And I think some folks that are going around carrying around talismans and, thinking that their tools are going to be what saves them. I just think it's important for them to take heed to some of this. So in your discussion about the importance of a healthy lifestyle, you state, you yourself, the one of a kind combination of your mind's knowledge and wisdom and your body's ability to act on them, are the ultimate survival tool. You should hone this tool just as rigorously as you select and care for the other tools you recommend or recommended in this book. Pardon me. I mean, that's tough to beat that statement, right? Hit on that for a second.
So it's like the one thing that can never be taken away from you, right? You could be taken into, you know, jail, prison, whatever, strip search, everything confiscated, have your head shaved, have nothing, absolutely nothing, but you still have your body and you still have your mind. Like the skills that you develop over your, over your lifetime, over, however long you get to develop them, and the knowledge that bring in through books and classes and, watching movies, you're just everything. Plus your physical fitness is what you will always have that can't be taken away from you. And I think it's really difficult to overstate the importance of that.
Yeah, very well said. And so this is something that I was going to hit on in just a second, but I've got another paragraph here that I think everybody needs to hear, that is more into the gear aspect of it and don't really give physical fitness as much of a priority. But even Cecil Birch recently, have you met Cecil before? Or?
Man, so full circle, I have not met Cecil, but a minute ago you were asking me about the master thing, and I almost said, like, I would consider Cecil Birch an absolute master of BJJ, but he probably would look at people above himself and not say that about himself, probably, right? Like, but Cecil on Instagram posted something about this book like right when it came out, and I'm like, holy shit, I definitely know who Cecil Birch is, but how does he know who I am? And I know he's on your show all the time, but
Yes, he is a very special friend. He's become one of the most important people or persons in my life. I wish I had more time to spend with him, but we're getting to do a little more of it. But Cecil hosted Craig Douglas of ShivWorks for ECQC the first time I took it in 2010. So it was the first time I met him. He was also the way Craig does it too. He chooses people very, very wisely in it. He doesn't choose all the new people. He doesn't choose a new person and say, hey, you're going against this inexperienced person. No, he reads people very well. And if you've got experience or you display that you've got experience in it, he's going to put you with the hardest people. So if I can be humble to say, I guess I'm lucky enough that I seem to get some of the hardest daggum people that Craig puts me against Cecil Birch and Rich Daniels. Shout out to Rich Daniels, who is almost a professional Muay Thai fighter for my first 2-on-1 in my first ECQC. So Cecil was my vehicle Evo as well. So he and I have a lot of stories. The point being, I didn't mean to get on that tangent. Cecil is superb. His immediate action combatives course should be a household name, just like ECQC.
That's on my short list of classes. I know he's coming to Yadkinville, I think in November.
Yes, that is correct.
Unfortunately, I've got a prior commitment I'm teaching for Rich, and then right after that, I'm going to Oklahoma out to Mead Hall for a John Hearn, Chuck Pressburg class. But otherwise, man, I would absolutely be there.
I know you would, brother, because you're a man of action. I was disappointed that you may have been out of town, but he'll be back. If not, I'll host him again sometime soon. But I'm humbled for him to have asked me to help him AI that class. So, but the point behind it is that it's kind of a progression, like a ECQC 2.0, and all of the guys like Paul Sharp as well, Larry Lindemann, the collective, just to name a few of the guys. Craig wanted those gentlemen like Cecil to take it a step further because of the stuff that he couldn't cover in the 2.5 days, that those guys could expound on it. Chris Fry is another one of the collective. But that's what Cecil's, and actually Cecil's Evos, the simulations in the class is quite a bit lighter. He actually wants it to be a little lighter, right? Not full-fledged Evos like you would see in ECQC. They're right there, but he wants it to be a good experience for each person in there. And so it's a little less intimidating to some that may not want to go to ECQC, but everybody should go to them anyway.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that the way he teaches, even just his escapes, are excellent. Just even to start there. But let me bounce back to the fitness piece. So a lot of people need to hear this. So in this, you put that physical fitness helps you perform under stress by keeping your resting heart rate at a manageable level. If your resting heart rate is 60, it can double before you start to experience a degradation in your ability to perform fine motor movements. It has to triple before you start to experience cognitive degradation, loss of peripheral vision, and auditory exclusion. If your resting heart rate, on the other hand, is 100, it can only go up 20% before you start to lose fine motor skills. And if your resting heart rate, if your resting heart rate of 100 doubles, you will be completely ineffective and verging on losing consciousness. So the point I'm going to make, and I want you to expound on that, folks are carrying a firearm in many cases, and they're out of shape, don't have any physical fitness in their life, that they're lucky to be able to survive the hit to their heart in an incident like that. You're expounding on that, Justin, please.
Yes. I think a number of things play into that, right? So like a lot of the Dave Grossman stuff was like, oh, in a violent encounter, your heart rate goes up to this, and then it's in this zone, whatever. But like we now know, like through a lot. I think John Hearn talks about this quite a bit. I'm trying to remember where I got this through these trials with Navy SEALs. Like basically, your brain controls where your heart rate goes, right? Not this. Oh, my heart rate's going to like shoot up, and then it's going to cause me to lose consciousness. Our brain is constantly taking in, and it's adjusting heart rate on the fly, like several times or many times a minute. So we don't have to worry about that just big, oh, I'm in a stressful situation, my heart rate goes through the roof and I'm going to go down. But by being physically fit, you give yourself just a lot of room to play with. Like, I know you saw my thing about SWAT school last week. We had a couple things where we had to sprint like 50 yards and then take some shots or whatever. And some people show up at that yard line or, behind that cover where they have to take those shots just completely gassed, versus some people who show up and like a 50-yard sprint is nothing to them. And like, which group do you want to be in? Or if better than I do, if you've got to go hands-on and you're in an all-out, you're going all out for 60 seconds, how gassed are you going to be if you're completely out of shape and you've never done that before, or you've never, you don't work out, you don't train, versus you work out several times a week and you train all the time. You're gonna be in a completely different place. It just gives you so much more margin for error, just so much more to work with, like physically to work with. And the physical stuff is really kind of simple. It's just your heart getting enough oxygenated blood to your muscles to have them do what you need them to do to get the job done, and also keep your brain functioning at like an optimal level. If you're not in shape, if you're not working out, like aside from the strength benefits, and like I carry a gun every single day. I carry one at work and I carry one off duty every single day, every time I leave the house. And I do that to extend my life. So I don't want to, all the things that can kill you are probably, or of the things that will kill me, it's probably not a gun. Even working in a relatively dangerous profession, I will probably go an entire career and never be shot at. Just statistically, I could get shot tomorrow, but statistically, retire at 30 years, never fire my gun. That's probably what's going to happen. What's probably going to get me are, things like dementia, heart disease, cancer, and like I think we should plan for those things also. I don't think, like obviously I'm having a little drink of bourbon tonight, which is like I almost never drink to excess. I haven't in years. Like I take several months off a year. Like everything in moderation, right? Like I don't want to live like a monk because I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, but I also don't want to live like I'm going to, I could be hit by an asteroid at 30 years old. So I'm going to, just go all out, because that's not a recipe for success either. We kind of have to balance planning for, maybe something bad will happen to me tomorrow. So I do need to prioritize some experiences, and so I need to live a little, but also I may live to be 85 years old, and I don't want those last 25 years to be in a nursing home or dragging around an oxygen tank or waking up and taking 18 pills every morning and having surgeries and that sort of thing. So just, kind of finding a balance. But man, physical fitness it plays a factor in so many. I hate to get on the soapbox. I'm a little bit frustrated at work with some of the guys at work, but physical fitness positively impacts every single aspect of your life. If I could give you a pill that made you better looking, that made you lose weight, that made you stronger, it made you faster, it made you more attractive to others, it made you more confident, it made you sleep better, and had zero negative side effects, like, what would people pay for that pill? And that's just exercise, man. That is just working out.
Yeah, excellent way. And I'm not law enforcement, so I don't want to come off as I'm making recommendations for law enforcement. But I've heard Chuck Haggard talk about this sometimes as well. But would you agree that in the law enforcement realm, for our coppers that put a priority on fitness versus those that don't, isn't there an increased chance that a person that is not in shape is more likely to have to use a gun because they don't have the physical capabilities and the mental preparation to deal with, and I might include also the physical capabilities? Am I wrong in thinking that? Because when you were talking about that, I'm like, you're you yourself, because you're in this preparedness thought process and your physical fitness and your empty hand capabilities. But am I wrong there? I mean, wouldn't there be an increase in the possibility of having to use a firearm as a cop if you are not physically fit and don't have some form of hand-to-hand skills?
I mean, I don't have any statistics to back that up, but yeah, I absolutely believe that, because I'm a big fan of John Hearn. Hates when I say this, because he's like, man, I hate being called I hate the idea of having fans, but like I love training with John Hearn, and he talks about
Dude.
you basically have your logical brain and your emotional brain, or your limbic brain, and when you're confronted with a life and death problem, your subconscious knows, or your subconscious decides, like, okay, are we good just handling this with the rational brain and making good logical decisions? Am I good letting the rational brain handle this? And if it reaches a point where it's like, nope, I'm not comfortable with that, he calls it letting the bear out. So when you let the bear out, it's going to do, one of two things. It's going to like wreck shop, or it's going to run away, or it's going to freeze. And sometimes that can be good. The bear's really good in certain situations, but the longer we can stay in that rational brain, the better decisions we can make. And he says you can't fool your subconscious. You know when the last time you shot was, when the last time you dry practice was, when the last time you rolled was, and what your level of physical fitness is. And I think if you don't have confidence in your empty hand skills, you don't have confidence in your ability to just talk to people, like, man, nothing will make you a good talker. Like, I'm not a big dude. I'm 165 pounds, 5'9". Nothing will make you a good talker than being the first officer on scene at a domestic with like a 6'2", 200-pound dude that's been in the gym a little bit. Like,
No kidding.
You'll get real good at hey man, how's it going?
And I'll add to that. That's not that you're necessarily afraid of getting in a confrontation. That's just a smart analysis,
Yeah.
And you're wanting to avoid it anyway. But yeah, I please carry on. I apologize.
And I'm a rural deputy, so literally sometimes I am 20 minutes away from backup. So I'm not afraid to, if I need to tell somebody, if I need to make somebody do something, I'm not afraid to make them do it. But I also recognize I'm well in my 40s. I'm not as fast or as agile or strong. I'm not as strong as everybody, and I'm not as skilled as everybody. There's some people with skills out there, and I'm old. So yeah, if I can just kind of defuse the situation, that's going to be better for everybody.
Brother, I'm I'm a little bit older than you. I have done a lot. I spent a lot more time in the martial arts gym when I was younger. What I mean by that is that was my focus more than anything else. And I would still say that I think I have better knowledge and better capabilities, but I definitely was physically more capable back then just because I'm getting older. It's just a
Yeah.
fact. So, and it does make us want to get a lot better at our de-escalation skills. And we should have those anyway as a
Yeah.
young man. But especially as you get older, it becomes more prominent. So very well, man. I tell you, see, that's what I was getting at. I was like, man, I know when we're going to get talking on these very important subjects that, I think I might have bit off more than I can chew on some. We still got some time, but these are such good discussions, Justin. Before we move on, do you want to add anything else to the fitness piece?
Um, I don't know. We can just let the conversation where it goes.
Yeah,
I feel like I could talk about it all day, but man, if there's, Rich Brown says this all the time, and on the podcast, like the best accessory you can buy for your gun is a gym membership, but you got to actually use it, man. Like I'll say this: I hate working out. I hate it every single time. This morning, I got up and I'm like, man, I don't want to do this, but you have to do it, man. You don't make it optional for yourself. It's not an option for me to work out. I have to do it. Just make it
well, you
a
talk
thing that
about
you,
just making it a part of your discipline,
yeah.
which is another aspect of it, obviously. Well, great, brother. So I do think this is probably second on the list, and that is mental toughness. And so let me see here and get to a couple of my notes here. So I'll first premise this. Have you ever heard Craig Douglas? Goodness, Craig, sorry, buddy. Craig Douglas talk about how mindset is not a verb. Have you heard him say that before?
I have, but refresh my memory.
Yeah. So essentially, all he's basically saying is that there's this kind of trite statement about, hey, you know, you need tools and you need mindset. I'm paraphrasing, but this is a
Yeah.
very common phrase. You need mindset, and a lot of people that espouse that, well, how do you get mindset? And he's just basically saying it's not a verb. So it's not a tangible thing. There's a lot more to it than just saying, hey, you need mindset. Well, how do you develop mindset? So but you hit on here about inoculate yourself against pain and discomfort. Now, doing difficult things makes the rest of your life seem better, and it enables you to appreciate it more deeply. Do some difficult things, join the military, work out, prepare for and complete a Spartan race or a Go Ruck event. Take on some difficult mental tasks, accept challenges, make commitments, and see them through. Um, Not everything has to be life or death difficult. Small amounts of discipline, exercise daily, will build up. Small doses of stress exposure over time will inoculate you to some extent to life or death stress. And the word inoculate, all of these things. I mean, I just love the way you say do difficult things. And again, we espouse it as well on our show. How are you going to develop mindset? Well, you're going to do it by doing hard things. It may even just be being under a heavy set of squats or a heavy set of
Yeah.
a deadlift. But that inoculation against stress, is it not one of the best ways to develop a resilient mind, right?
Man, 100%. And I kind of wish I would have had a little bit more of this when I was younger. I feel like I have much more of it now, but now, like, I will, man, Yeah, I enjoy doing things that that really suck. I tried to sell my SWAT team on going to a Go Ruck event, and two people signed up, but I'm like, hey guys, it's 12 hours, it's overnight. You're gonna be exhausted. You're gonna be wet. They're definitely gonna make you get in water somewhere. You're gonna be cold. It's gonna really, really suck, and then it's gonna be over. And they're like, man, you're really selling this. And I'm like, hey man, I'm just being completely upfront with you. It's going to be miserable, and then it's going to be over, and you're going to be glad you did it. But yeah, I don't. So I think I went through a period, right, of like I was working in the private sector up in DC. Like my military days are behind me, and I kind of felt like, what have you done lately? What have you done? What have you done to prove yourself lately? Like you proved yourself a long time ago, but that was a long time ago. Like you can't rest on those laurels forever. So then I got really into rucking and into these go ruck events, which they are no fun. But they also kind of are. You know what I mean? Like it's just everybody's in it together. It's like there's no way out. You can quit, but you still got to walk home. so,
Yeah, there you go.
so yeah, and you're carrying you're just it's just sucking, man. But I've found that things like that are, after you're done with it, you're like, dude, how awesome is it to be able to walk around without a pack on, or how awesome is it to sleep in an actual bed? Or
Yes.
like, so the last one I did, man, I got up that morning and I was like, I really just want to stay in this bed. It's raining outside. It's, had to drive like 2 hours to get to it. And I was meeting my friend Molly. We were going together. But then that night, I'm laying back in that bed, and I'm like, dude, I could have said, screw it, I'm not going. I could have stayed in this bed, nice and warm, got up, had breakfast, and whatever. But I would still be in the same place I am tonight, but I wouldn't have this experience in the bank, right? Like I wouldn't have this accomplishment behind me. I wouldn't have this, like I tested myself and I exceeded the test, right? I passed. I did the thing. Let me just brag on Molly for a second. She's just a friend. She's just a friend. She's a paramedic that I work with. She weighs like 130 pounds. She had never done a Go Ruck event before, but we started working out together a little bit. And I'm like, hey man, you should go do this Go Ruck event with me. And I didn't tell her really anything about it. And she's like, okay, cool. We get into it, and the whole time she's like, man, I hate your guts. Like, what did you get me into? I'm never doing this again. It's like 2 days after it was over, I called her and I'm like, hey, how you doing? A couple days later, you all right? And she's like, if you still want to do that one in September, I'll go with you. So, but like every time
Awesome.
I looked up, she actually had a smile on her face. And dude, it's just willpower, man. It's just mindset. Like I have so many dudes, like big, strong dudes, like, hey, go do this. You want to go do this Go Ruck thing? And so this upcoming one in September, I have two guys from the team that are gonna go, as well as me and Molly. But it blows my mind sometimes, the people that can do this and blow it out of the water, and then the people who won't even try.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would tell you is that I've seen your recommendations here. I obviously did a lot of rucking in the Army, probably not as much as you did in the Marine Corps, but I also, my son and I used to do a lot of hiking. We used to live in south of Seattle, so the amazing mountains there, the Wonderland Trail around Rainier. And my son and I would go on hikes, and it's basically rucking, right?
Yeah.
And the point behind that is I haven't done as much of that. The last time my son and I, we did a minor hike and camping trip, so it'd have been 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, was a blast. The point being is that, now I wrote on my list, like I need to try one of those events as well, because I have not done rucking in a while. And if I can indulge and give another comparison, because I think it's also apropos, and we talk about this all the time, you know, folks that have never done anything, another another capable type of mindset thing is like going to an ECQC. You
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
mentioned you mentioned how you feel afterwards. I'm a multi-time alum. I honestly would have to really count again how many times I've done it. Um, but and also being a host, and it'll be coming up. I'm like, why am I doing this again? You
So
know,
just to be clear, I've never done it. I don't want that to be.
oh, understood, brother. If you get the chance, great, man.
Yeah.
Cecil's class, any of them. Uh, Goodness, Cliff Byerly's Complete Combatant is another. He, I give a shout out to him any chance I get. He's a former. I think he was in MARSOC, or was he? Was he? Goodness, Recon. I forget. I don't know. Have you heard of Cliff Byerly
Yeah.
before?
So he's buddies with my friend Walt Settlemeyer, who I know
Yep.
you've had on your
Oh,
show before
absolutely.
too.
Yeah, yeah. He is a great dude, and another person that just cares about you and you know everybody around you. He is another person that should be a household name. Again, any of those types of classes, anytime that I've done them, every time I face them, I'm like, man, you know, you face some badass dude or multiple dudes in front of you. It can be scary, man. You
Yeah.
know, but after you're done, the amazing experience, how gratifying it is, this elation that you have after the fact, and you have all these men and women that did it with you. And guess what? Some people that came to it had never been in a fight in their life, hadn't even had jujitsu or wrestling, just, people that you would never thought showed up, they show up and they make it through it. It's another example of that. So I just wanted to add that as another example. We have all these things that are out there for people to do. Showing up at a shooting match, facing yourself against peers is also, would you agree, that's also another way to face some
Yeah.
mental toughness. Maybe not in the same fashion, but that's another thing that folks can do too.
Even showing up at a class, as many shooting classes as I've been to, still showing up at a class, there's just a little bit of anxiety because you don't know who all's there,
You
and like,
mentioned that. Yep.
but yeah. And one other benefit to doing stuff like this is if you can talk someone else into going, you will learn a lot about that person. So, like Molly, man, bro, I have so much respect for her because look at all the people that could have gone and didn't. Like she went. Even if she would have quit, I'd have been like, man, that was that was awesome to even try. But like, bro, she crushed it, man. Like that's my brother-in-law and I did this field survival course down at Randall's Adventure Training 3 years ago, and I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. I was like, it won't be that hard. They're charging people money to do it. And he was like PTing, getting ready for it. And I'm like, it'll be fine, dude. It was horrible. It was like you start at like super early Friday morning. There's no food pretty much the entire time. They basically, just patrol you around the whole time. You never sleep. It absolutely poured the rain. You can only have like 5 items with you the whole time. And I learned something about my brother-in-law, man. Like he was in the Marine Corps for a few years in the reserves, but we never served together. And I know he's a great provider for his family and all that stuff. But like we've never experienced hardship together, bro. That dude is hard as woodpecker lips, man. Like he
Nice.
was. I mean, that is super gratifying just to find that out about people that your friends, like just to find out, like, dude, this, like when the going gets tough, I can count on this dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, I love that. I think that should be said over and over again. You learn a lot about people who end up showing up with you.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
and again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating up on people, but we invite people to do things all the time. If it be a shooting match, or if it be showing up at jujitsu, just try jujitsu, or showing up at an ECQC, or trying any one of these firearms courses. And you got the same dudes that, number one, I'll just put it this way. Sometimes the subject came up because for some reason there was some relationship and you start talking about it. And they're the same folks that, it's almost like their egos hurt because you do something that they like to do, but yet they won't show up at these courses. They
Yeah.
won't show up at any of them. And we see it over and over again. And I'll never forget, there was a colleague of mine that was always talking mad crap about shooting and how good. He literally would say how good he was. And I'm like, Well, cool, man. Hey, you should show up at this IDPA match we got this weekend, man. Oh no, man, I got this going on. I got this going on. Or there was another colleague of mine that actually, I was his technical lead, and he and I would shoot together all the time. We'd invite our buddies out. None of them would ever show up. And I think it's important for what you just said is that, you know, people that show up at even the most mundane things, like a weekend match or a weekend class, really tells you how serious they are.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like we're beating up or I'm beating up on people, but it does say a lot.
Also to brag about some people, man. Like I don't think they know what they'll get out of it. So the first GoRuck event I ever did, and I haven't done a million of them, I've done a couple. The first one I ever did, two people went with me. A paramedic I was full-time at EMS. So this dude who's a big fan of GoRuck, he's an awesome dude, but he's a big fan of GoRuck gear. Like when I was doing clinicals, I noticed he had a GoRuck backpack, and I'm like, "Oh, you got a GoRuck pack?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love the gear." He, big kind of gear nerd about the gear, but he'd never done he doesn't work out, whatever. Well, I talked him into going, and I talked my cousin into going. And my he's a little older than me. I think he was 50 when we did this one. It was a couple of years ago, but he had never been in the military, never, super successful in business, very successful dude. But doing that event, both of those guys made it through. The guy who didn't train at all had a much harder time, and it's going to be hard no matter what. But they both finished it, and for both of them, it was an incredibly meaningful experience. I think for my cousin, it was one of the most profound experiences of his life. Of holy crap, I finished this. He had never done anything remotely like that. And I it's just the fear. It's the GoRuck, the instructor that was running that one, I think said it best. We get out there, we're standing in formation. He's like, "You guys are going to be freezing tonight. Make sure, checking our packs, make sure you have that $20 in there on your phone so you can call a taxi. If you get tired of doing, 800, burpees that we're going to do tonight or whatever, or get tired of being in the river or whatever." And your mind's "Oh man, I don't do I really want to do this?" And he said, the brain craves comfort. The brain wants you to be comfortable. Your brain is telling you right now, you would rather be comfortable. So you're making a decision to choose to be uncomfortable. And that's, as my buddy Shane would say, that's some voluntary time in the pain cave. You don't get to choose if you suffer, but you do get to choose when you suffer. And if you suffer now, you put that in the bank, and it makes whatever you do in the future that much easier.
Well, Justin, I'm going to have to do one sometime for certain. Unfortunately, September probably not going to work for me because I don't know if you saw that I said I unfortunately tore one of my calf muscles.
Yeah.
But anyway, I will make the commitment on the air that I'm going to have to do one of those events with you sometime, because here's the thing. All of us that did rucks in the military, the Army instituted the 12-mile ruck that you had to do every year. And, you know all about the forced ruck march, all of those things. And I don't know if that's a part of the Go Ruck or not. I need to look for, pardon me. I definitely know about the events. I don't know as much about them. From what you're describing, it sounds amazing. And I'll just put it to you this way. There's probably people that would show up at an ECQC that won't show up to a Go Ruck. I'll just put it that way. I think it's just a different kind of suck, if that makes sense. But rucking's not easy, man. Carrying weight, when you're trying to make a certain time, and there's times where you're running with that heavy ruck on your back, and it beats your feet up. It blisters your feet. It's not easy. But
no,
I haven't.
It's a mental game.
Yeah.
Your body's capable of more than your brain will tell you.
Absolutely,
your brain will tell you to stop long before your body makes you.
I'll definitely make a commitment. I'll start looking at ones close to us and keep communicating with you when I'm back in where I can actually do it. And And
Yeah.
I need to work on rucking. You know, I'm not going to say I'm in great rucking shape right now. I've been doing it, but I will. But I'll commit. I'll certainly do one of those events. That sounds like a blast. And obviously, what we're talking about is we still have to do things continually to keep our mindset sharp. You know, and so that sounds like another awesome way of getting that mental toughness in. That's
And
awesome, man.
I need someone to go with me so I don't punk out and like, ah.
Man, you aren't lying, brother. We should double down on that. How many times have, I mean, I know I've done it, where if it wasn't for my buddy showing up at an event, I might have had an easy way of saying, I just don't think I'm going to go to that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just human. You know, I don't care how many tough things we might have done through our lives. And I think, unfortunately, it's a little easier as you get older to make that excuse, but it's not an excuse. You know, you're excusing yourself.
I don't know about you. I don't know about all the listeners, but like my brain is always looking for the easy way out of
Yes.
everything. Like,
Yes,
oh
sir.
man, like nobody's going to know if you
Absolutely.
don't go to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am the same way, brother. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit. But when we commit ourselves to our buddies and we say we're going to do something, if we stick to it, you know, we benefit from that. So yeah, I'm definitely, that's why I said it on the air. There's a reason I said it on the air.
Yeah. I will go with you, man. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll make it happen, man. I'm thinking down the hall, make my son go too.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah.
And he'll do it. He'll do it in a heartbeat. Well, listen, man. So we're sitting here just over an hour. So yeah, I'm kind of I'm snickering a little bit because I was like, man, I think I might have bitten off more than I think we can get through. So let's do this, brother. To give some red meat to some of our audience members out there that are kind of more on the gear side, what I'm gonna go right out and say is that I appreciate dudes that they get gear and they wear it out. They're not looking for the next best piece of whiz bang gear. And I look at all your gear recommendations. It's all good gear. But you know what? It also looks to me, you correct me if I'm wrong, you're using some of the same shit you've been having for many, many years, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just important that we all look at gear as being, it supports our needs. And again, I'm going back on the fact that I love gear. I do too, but
man, I do too. I'm not going to lie. I love talking shit about you need to be in shape and you need to be financially whatever. But man, I love gear. I absolutely do.
So the other thing that I was going to comment on, and I think it's also cool, is in your chapter, develop a system of everyday carry, or EDC. One of the things I notice in this list, and I'm going to say yet, is, man, I don't see a firearm in there. And I'm gonna make sure that I'm really premising it this way. I can appreciate that, because most people that think EDC, the first thing they think about is their firearm, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you separated EDC from the firearm itself. Not the firearm isn't a part of your EDC, but it hit on that, and just give a general quick summary of the things that you recommend most, and I'll riff off of that with you.
Okay, sure. Well, so I think a firearm is a specialist tool. It's not the answer to everything. It's the answer to like a very, very narrow band of problems. And before you get to that, I've lived, I don't know, 365 times 45, like however many days. And I've never in civilian life needed to pull a gun on anybody, but I use a knife every single day. Probably every single one of those days since I was like, I don't know, 16, almost, I've used a knife. Firearm is a very specialized thing. I definitely want to talk about it, man. I geek out on firearms, as all of us do, like super nerdy and like love, going down the rabbit hole of like how complicated can I make this for myself. But I think if you're just getting into this, just starting to develop this, like there's probably other things that are going to be much more useful to you right away, like a knife, and not as a weapon. Like I know Rich reviewed my book, and he's like, "Oh, I don't like these knives because they don't have whatever, they don't have a pommel or whatever if you're using it as a stabbing tool." And I'm like, I never use the word stab once in this book. These are not weapons. These are just tools to cut, like peel an apple or open a package or cut string or whatever. I think you need a flashlight, man. It's dark 50% of the time on the planet that we live on. I think you need a flashlight, and you go in a building during the daytime and the power goes out. It's dark in there too. So really big on knife, flashlight, wallet. I talk quite a bit about things you should have in your wallet, and I think one of those things should be $1,000 in cash. That's kind of a controversial opinion, but
You beat me to it.
There's not a lot of immediate problems that you can have that $1,000 still, even with as expensive as stuff is now. And I was saying this 10 years ago, but as expensive as stuff is now, $1,000 will still get you a place to stay for a number of days. It will do a lot of repairs on your vehicle. It will just get you out of a lot of problems. Or if you have the financial luxury to have some extra cash, it will it's there if you run across that great deal on whatever that they're asking $650 for, and you're like, hey, how about I give you $600 cash, whatever it is. It's nice to have cash. Or if you I went to pick my dog up at the dog sitter the other day, and I think I owed her like $150, and I'm like, crap, the ATM I stopped at was out of service, and I'm like, I don't want to drive 4 miles over here to this one, so I'm like,
brother.
I've got the cash on me. It's nice to have cash for things like that. I talk about keys in that section. Nothing drives me crazier in a horror movie than the person's trying to leave and can't find their keys. It's like, how does that happen? My keys are never out of my pocket unless they're in the ignition. Like, how does this even happen, bro? I think there's some basic stuff. Another hot take, another kind of controversial opinion. I don't carry a tourniquet, and I think if you're only going to carry one thing, tourniquet's probably not the best thing to carry. It only takes care of your arms and legs, and not even all of your arms and legs, and it's not even needed for all of. Like, you probably noticed this bandage. I tried to make a good story before I came on the air about I cut the crap out of my palm today. I slipped and went to catch myself, and there was a little screw sticking out, sliced the crap out of my palm. But I'm glad there weren't other cops around, because they probably would have put a tourniquet on my arm. Because that's all that, any drop of blood and it's go to a tourniquet. I don't think it's the best medical intervention for a generalist setup. I think if you're carrying two things, okay, a tourniquet should be one of them. But if you're carrying one thing, I don't know that that's the best thing. I carry, and man, I should have one, because I'm kind of handy, because I'm kind of an evangelist for this, but a triangular bandage. It makes an improvised tourniquet, which is admittedly a poor tourniquet. But it does a lot of other things. You can use it for wound packing, use it for, a sling and swath, as padding for a splint. You can, use it as cordage. You can use it as all kinds of stuff. And I've used probably 20 of those to every one tourniquet I've used as a full-time paramedic. Tourniquets just aren't, it's pretty rare that you need one, and there's probably a lot of other things you're going to encounter before you need one. And I talk about that a lot in the first aid chapter. The first aid chapter is also kind of special, because I really got to approach that kind of from, I know I'm getting off topic here, but got to approach that kind of a patient assessment centric format of, you can't treat it if you don't know what you're treating. So you have to, kind of go down the list and assess your patient. And I hope it was somewhat enjoyable to read, but that EDC, knife, flashlight, some sort of, I like a triangular bandage for medical, your keys, your wallet, a watch. I'm also big on a real watch, not an Apple Watch or whatever. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not my thing.
Well, so let me make two comments there on that. I mean, it's so interesting that some of these notes that I wrote down, I wanted to cover and make sure that we talked about, and you hit on basically all of them. That's the $1,000 cash. I'm guilty of not carrying that much cash. I put on my list that I'm going to make sure that I start carrying more cash on me. So that's something that I took away from your book. And I wanted to comment on the tourniquet thing. And I think it was you and I think it was you that mentioned something about a tourniquet, or I hope it was you, but I think I asked if is that a phenomenon of the
Oh
GY?
yeah,
Was it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I personally think that there's that big push for tourniquets. Well, tourniquets are real important when you got body armor on and you're
yeah,
in an
yeah.
IED, because you're likely going to have you may very well have a severed limb, and so is that not a big part of why there's this push for tourniquet?
Yeah, I think part of it's the 180 from never use a tourniquet only as a last resort, only as in
Yeah.
the gravest try
Hmm.
everything first. And I'm glad we're over that, and I'm glad we recognize that tourniquets are really valuable for what they're indicated for. They are incredibly valuable for that extremity hemorrhage that is uncontrolled. But like in mass shootings, like tourniquets are not the most, or not a lot of people are dying from extremity injuries. They're dying from injuries to the head and the trunk that in a military context would be survivable because of body armor. So there's not a ton of opportunity for tourniquets to be like the life-saving intervention that they would be in a military context. Plus, I think it's easy to check the gearbox of like, oh, I've got tourniquet check, medical's covered. I mean, if you're going to spend, I don't know, tourniquets are kind of sorry, bad analogy. I would much rather you have a 2-day class on, like wilderness first aid than a tourniquet. You're going to do so much more with that knowledge than you are with that piece of gear, but it's hard to show off that knowledge on Instagram. It's much
Yeah.
harder to show your EDC layout with your wilderness first responder or your EMT card or whatever. It's not as impactful as that, cool guy piece of gear, which I think is a big part of it too. And like kind of I see people really resistant to in the tactical space to learning CPR because we
Yeah.
don't do CPR on the battlefield. It's like, bro, we don't live on a battlefield. We live in civilian life. I did a Instagram post about this a while back. I've literally probably done CPR 100 to 1 to tourniquet uses that I've done.
Very well said.
CPR saves freaking lives, man, and we need people out there with that capability. The higher, I mean, it's a very clear line. The higher the percentage of the population that is CPR trained, the better the survival rates are for acute coronary syndrome. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be out of shape. You don't have to be fat. You can be a healthy guy, or your kids can be healthy and still still suffer cardiac arrest. Especially if you have kids, man, there is no way I would have kids at home and not do a CPR class every
Yeah.
year, because respiratory, they choke on something. Respiratory is by far and away the leading cause of cardiac arrest in the pediatric population. There is no way I would have kids at home and not have a CPR class every year.
Man, I love that you brought that up, and I'll kind of present this and ask you as well. A part of the CPR class now, correct me if I'm wrong, is they add the AED to that as
Mm-hmm.
well, correct?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, I may be misrepresenting. Caleb Cossey said one time at TACCon that I really appreciated, and it stuck in my mind. And I hope I have the percentage right. Caleb, I know you listen to this show, brother, so you can slap me around the next time you see me if I get this wrong. Um, but he really pushed saying, "Hey, know where the AEDs are in your
Yeah,
office, and make sure that
yeah.
everybody else around you knows where they are." And being the CPR class includes AED, he said something again. I hope I have this right. That if you are shocked within 7 minutes of cardiac arrest, that it's upwards of a 90% chance that you will survive. Am I wrong? And again, if I quoted him incorrectly, but at a minimum, it is a high percentage that you're going to survive if you get shocked with the AED, correct?
It definitely goes up. Yeah, high quality CPR is the main thing, because so basically we just keep a little bit of blood flowing to keep tissue alive. Time is tissue. The longer your brain goes without oxygen and sugar, the worse your, like, even if you survive, the worse your quality life, worse your potential outcome is going to be. So really just keeping that blood flowing through high quality CPR, that's definitely priority over an AED. If
Okay.
someone else is there to go get it, have someone else go get it, but high quality CPR, which
I'm
is
glad
like
you
full
formulated
compressions, full chest recoil, all that. I'm actually getting ready to,
staying alive. Is that what do they
yeah, I'm getting
still do?
ready to teach CPR Friday. So, yeah. And I teach CPR to law enforcement agencies. I teach it to, Con Ed for EMS or for EMT basic classes or whatever. But man, nothing is more gratifying to me than teaching it to the public. And I wish our system had a much more robust, advertised it to the general public. I love teaching it to the public because I think it's super important, man. No one, no one, no one, I won't say no one, but rarely does someone wake up planning to do CPR that day. Like, the day you do CPR is just, starts out like any other normal day. So, you need to be ready.
Well, and again, quoting, John Hearn. I know he's a humble dude. You mentioned him earlier. Such a great person and a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
Everybody should be seeking John Hearn out 100% if you're serious about taking care of yourself. And he's funny too, man. He's a
Yeah.
witty, funny dude. Is that you then, if you've taken a CPR class, you have a neural pathway that has started.
Yeah.
You at least have a parking place, right? To use. He uses that, and I think that was very much highly pushed by the late great William April. You have a parking place for CPR in your life, and because you took that class, even maybe you've only taken it once, you very well could save somebody's life. And otherwise, if you hadn't, you may have just like, oh, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
Am I right there?
Yeah. My least favorite thing to hear when I'm on the way to the call is dispatch saying we're trying to get CPR started, and they will try to talk you through it, but some people are, some people are just flat out unwilling, which, not a lot of your, I'll be honest, not a lot of the things that we go to as paramedics are viable candidates for CPR. Like they're really old, they have terminal illness, they, whatever. And I'm not saying they're not worth trying, because we absolutely will give them, in the absence of a DNR or something, we'll give them the full effort. But advanced cardiac life support's really meant for that, like guys our age, men and women, who have a lot of years of potential life left, and who have a good potential outcome for success. And nothing is more disheartening than showing up at a scene where it's someone who is fairly young and nobody has started CPR on them for 8 minutes or whatever it is, and it's like, oh man, this is like that's one of the things that's kind of, I don't have a very hard time with a lot of things on the job, but that is kind of one of them, of like, man, if somebody would have been here with the willingness and the ability to do something, this would have been a completely different outcome. Yeah,
Man,
that bugs. And like one of the best cardiac saves I ever had was a dude, I think he was like 46 years old, came home from work and like collapsed in front of his wife. His wife happened to be a nurse, started CPR. There was it just so happened there was like one of our, like our one annual murder in the county had happened like right across the road from where he lived. So there were a bunch of cops over there. So there were, like 3 deputies were able to run over and relieve her and do good CPR until EMS got there. So then me and my partner get there, give like one shock, and the dude wakes up, and it's like, that's pretty awesome. And
awesome.
it wasn't us. It wasn't me and Jamie. It was that bystanders were able to do CPR immediately. That's what kept that dude alive. That's why he's alive today.
Well, Justin, you see me, and I hope that you understand. Sometimes when I'm looking down, I'm writing down notes because I'm trying to make a commitment to myself. So I admit, I've taken a decent amount of stop the bleed type classes, and when I'm deployed, it's always, I still deploy as a civilian. I mean, I just got back from SWA in November of last year, and every single time I go over there, I'm talking to my units. And it's like, hey, are you guys doing combat lifesaver? I want to keep my creds up, and I'm not at all
Yeah.
saying combat lifesaver is all that, but it is something that I can keep up with while deployed, and I can renew it whenever I get the chance with my units back home. But also in those are CPR and AED classes as well. The point that I'm making is that I wrote a note to myself that around my agency, and I'm stationed on Fort Bragg, is I'm gonna set up a CPR class. I can't teach it myself. I'm not qualified. And maybe that's the point is maybe I need to get qualified to do it. But the point is I'm gonna set up a CPR class and
Heck yeah,
start trying
man.
to get that done, because you really inspired me, and the way your thought process on it is really encouraging. Again, I beat a dead horse on this show, and again, some audience members may get tired of me saying these verbal cues, and a verbal cue such as that is like, hey, guys, get out there. If you had the capabilities in your agency, your work, your place of business, let's heed Justin's recommendation. And if you don't have CPR classes at your agency, place of work, business, whatnot, let's commit to doing that. And I'm gonna let you know when I get that scheduled, because I love the way you put it. It definitely is encouraging me. Like, I need to make more of a point to do that. I'm always pointing out the AED, but you you made me think even higher about the CPR. So thank you, buddy,
Well,
for
and just
doing
to
that.
drive this home a little bit more, the first person I ever did CPR on, so I'd been through EMT school. I was in paramedic school. I wasn't even at work. It was my next door neighbor. Like found my next door neighbor collapsed, and
Wow.
I'm like, dude, had I not just been through this 3 months ago, like I have no idea that I would have I guess the courage to start CPR, because it's traumatic for sure, nor the knowledge to be like, yeah, this is definitely the right thing to do. And unfortunately, she didn't have a good outcome. But I'm super. I sleep much better at night knowing that I did absolutely everything that could
Yes.
possibly be done given the situation, and I wasn't just standing around like, I wish somebody would hurry and get here. Like, I knew what to do and then did it. And
Awesome.
that may be your experience. Like that, if you don't work in this, that probably will be your experience of a coworker, an employee, a customer, a friend, a family member, a parent, a child. Like, yeah, man, you don't want to find yourself on that day and be like, oh man, I really wish I would have done that.
Well, and that person that you perform CPR and they survive. And I'm not saying each and every person isn't important. There's probably some people out there that I shouldn't go down that road. There's some evil people out there, as I'll just say that. However, for the most part, that person that you saved could very well be the most important breadwinner, the person that is keeping a family together, keeping food on the table, and keeping the opportunities alive for a lot of their children and their family. You
Yeah.
may very well have changed the outcome of what otherwise would be horrendously tragic. So I I don't think I don't think we can really drive that home enough. So I'm glad that you really pushed that. So people think, oh,
Yeah.
well, CPR,
Chris,
but no, it's
this
important.
past Christmas Eve, I picked up a shift, and I had a great partner that day, Brian. He's like incredibly smart dude, and he's just a go getter. He's been doing this forever, but he's like not lost it. He's not become jaded. Like, it's really easy to do. Like, very first call out of the gate was a cardiac arrest. We got pulses back on her, and then late in the afternoon we had another cardiac arrest, who was again a young guy, with teenage children, at Christmas Eve with the the parents or the in-laws or whoever it was like collapsed in front of his family. And you know, I'm not sure what happened to the first one that we worked that day, but that guy was out of the hospital like 3 days later, which is, I mean, incredibly gratifying, man.
That's awesome, Justin. Well, brother, we are getting close to the normal duration that we have people, and I want to respect your time as well. But I mentioned red meat earlier. We didn't talk a whole lot about the firearms. So maybe as a summary, and you know, now I admit this is not set up yet
I
completely,
know what that is.
but the poor man's 1301, right?
Yeah.
So this is the patrol A300.
A300.
Yeah, so I'm a shotgun newbie, brother. So I know you're big into shotguns. So I thought I would just close with, in your book, you make some firearms recommendations. You talk about obviously the pistol, the long gun, so on and so forth. Just do a quick summary. What do you really like to recommend for the firearms, both pistol and long gun?
Man, so handgun, I think generally we're gun people, so we can tolerate a lot more gun than the average person. And then we complain about like, yeah, all these people have their permits but never carry, or carry, like only once a week or whatever. And I think it's because we recommend Glock 19s. And I personally, for me, I think the Glock 19 is a huge gun.
It is
like,
big,
it is super uncomfortable for me to carry
and
appendix.
I'm a
Like
bigger dude myself. Yep.
yeah, just so I love the Glock 48. I think the Glock 43X is getting really popular now. I did a 5-day Tom Givens class with the P365 XL.
Nice. Tom Givens.
Like there's some, and I carry. I hate that this is like a do as I say, not as I do. I carry a custom 1911 that I've carried for like every day for 8 years, because I got some training scars in the military with 1911s, and wouldn't really recommend it for most folks. But yeah, I think any of those kind of I don't want to say micro compact, but whatever those stack and a half 9mm are pretty good for most people. If if you're really throwing yourself into this Glock 19, there's nothing wrong with it at all. Plenty of guns to choose from in that category. Definitely stick with a 9mm just because cost of ammo is the main one for me. I shoot a lot.
No reason not to.
Yeah, I would have to shoot a lot less if I went to like a 40 or 45 or something, and have less capacity and more recoil and harder on the guns and all these other yeah. I'm a 9mm guy. I think most people who are pretty, at a pretty high level just all kind of migrate to that conclusion too. And not there's, if you already have a 45, like you don't need to run out tonight and spend $600 on a new gun, but that's my preference. Long guns, I think you go either way. I love my ARs. And there's, pretty much any price point you want to be at, from $500 to $5,000, you can find an AR that I think like a BCM. I'm a big fan of BCM rifles.
Me too, brother.
I mean, they're, I don't know, a little on the pricier side, $1,500 or so, get you into a BCM. If you got, Geisley money or Noveski money, you can, have a really nice rifle, but I don't have any of those. And then shotguns, man, I've got a Mossberg 590, a Remington 870, and a Beretta 1301, and my BCM Recce 14 carbine and my Beretta 1301 both ride in my patrol car. I have never taken the rifle out, but the shotgun comes out every now and then. If I like most of our, that'll handle 95% of your of law enforcement problems, and probably 99.9% of just civilian self-defense problems in the home. I am a big fan of the shotgun for sure.
Well, I would admit, I for many, many years, and it's not because of my experience as a soldier. Again, I was not in the sexy side of things, but I mean, before I joined the Army, I was already a competitive shooter. I was already an AR shooter. But I am more partial to ARs because it's what I'm used to. However, there is no question, and I'm not a stopping power dude. I think it's sophomore work. But but you hit it on the head. There's no reason not to go 9 millimeter
Yeah.
these days with the quality of ammunition out there. There's no reason. But to the point with the shotgun, that, correct me if I'm wrong, it is usually a one shot
Yeah.
affair.
Yeah.
Some good quality double aught buck. There is just not anything that I've seen statistically that is a better man stopper. And then you can run slugs through it and stop some dangerous games sometimes too,
Yeah.
and hunt with it. So I'm admitting that I'm not that great with the shotgun. I'm starting to remedy that. But I agree, man. It just is a phenomenal platform. And I knew that you were a fan of it, so I wanted to make sure that I brought that up. You've had some really good blog posts on the shotgun recently, some of the training you've been doing. So I thought I would at least give some red meat to our audience about some gear. So very cool. Now, Justin, if you would indulge me for just a few more minutes,
Yeah.
because my brother, he's not been on the show as much recently. He's had some, his sons are in their formative years, and he's just not having as much time to dedicate. But he always says this is the most important question of the show, and I like to prod at him. I don't think it's the most important, but no, I'm kidding. I'm really giving my twin brother a hard time. But hit us with your top three, either musicians or bands that you like, because you
Oh
see the
man,
drums behind me here, right?
I do. Yeah.
So my brother and I are musicians, and we also play a lot of the bumper music. So it's a big part of our lives. But yeah, if you don't mind, what you got?
Man, I'm going to tell you a little intrusive thought I had as soon as we got online and I saw those drums back there. I worked a suicide yesterday, and this dude was a super
Goodness.
big musician, had like 2 Connex's boxes full of speakers and drum sets and whatever.
Wow.
That's just the first thing I thought of when I saw that symbol back there. Man, that's a great. I'm super into Tyler Childers right now. So,
Nice.
man, my music is all over the place.
Cool.
Like I'll get on a Nelly kick or something. Like I'm all over the place. But love Tyler Childers. He's really doing it for me right now. Big on Irish punk. I'm kind of into the Rumjacks right now.
Cool.
Let's see.
That's always some good background music, especially for some of what we do.
Yeah. Oh man, I kind of want to look at my playlist because man, it's just a mess.
And that's okay, Justin. You can, I know it sometimes puts people on the spot. It put Mike Seeklander on the spot.
I should have been ready
too.
for this.
No,
I should have known this was coming.
I should have let you know, but sometimes that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
And if you can't think of anything right now, it's no big deal. You've given a lot, so
yeah, I'll get back to you on that third one.
Not a problem at all. You pretty much gave us 3. So, but yeah, music.
I'll say the Pogues.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. That all that you mentioned is a good list. And one of the things that we like to do sometimes on this show is we talk gear, we talk fighting all the time, but music is a lot of what makes people. And sometimes it brings out just a little bit of a fun side to the discussion when everything's so serious.
Yeah.
And being that Aaron and I grew up musicians, he and I played in bands together. It's a huge part of our lives. Now, I would say that I don't listen to music as much as I listen to podcasts and talk radio, but I am very picky about my sound system in my truck. So I do up a little bit better sound system, and
yeah,
it to my wife's chagrin, because I'm also obviously a drummer and a shooter. So what is loud to her is just right to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like to crank up some Tool or Metallica. I like a lot of country too. But yeah, it's a big part. So, well, cool, Justin. Listen, man, I will tell you that this has been an absolute blast. I knew it would be, but it also was even more so to me. I appreciate the time that you've given myself and our audience. And I'll say it again. I'm dedicating myself. I'll start looking at dates for those Go Ruck events, and I will make one happen with you, brother. Because I like putting myself on notice, and it gives me a good damn reason to do it. So,
Well, crap, man. Now I got to keep rucking till till whenever that is.
well, brother, I'll tell you, you're in much better rucking shape than I am right now. And then also, full disclosure, you know, I've been doing formal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since 2005.
Wow.
I have literally watched, excuse me, and they've become some very big influences on my jiu-jitsu. I've watched dudes when I was a blue belt that were brand spanking new white belts that are high level black belts now. So I admit I'm still working on my brown belt. So I'm trying to get my black belt before I'm 55. I should be able to do it. This injury really was a kick in the butt, because that was what I was putting my focus again, is my jiu-jitsu. But I'll heal and I'll be back. And every one of us that is serious about jiu-jitsu gets injured, so I'm no different than anybody else. So, but yeah, so that's that on my jiu-jitsu. So, see, that was going to be my focus. But what the cool part is when it's cardiovascular stuff. If I'm rucking, it's helping me my jiu-jitsu. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll make it happen, Justin. Have a blessed evening, brother. I look forward to doing this again, and I definitely look forward to doing some training with you, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yep, you are a huge influence on people. I know you think that you're not. I think you should definitely know that what you're doing is important. So thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one.